So I've written a page full of notes arguing whether religious experience can be used as proof for God's existence or whether it can't be. Now I'm going to talk you through them, and I essentially want to persuade you why the criticisms given against religious experience for proof for God's existence are illogical, absurd, and they're invalid. Why religious experience can be used as evidence for God's existence. So let's start with the first most popular criticism. Well, critics argue that the concept of God is incoherent. They look at natural disasters, poverty, the problem of evil, and they just say that the concept of God is not possible, it's incoherent. Therefore, you can't experience something which does not exist. So religious experience is basically not proof for God's existence, is what they are saying. Now, this is a really ridiculous claim because they start with the fact that God doesn't exist, and then they go on to say that's why religious experience is just an illusion. This is what Karl Marx does. Well, hello. I'm saying to you whether religious experience can be used for God's existence. You don't start by saying God's existence, therefore religious experience cannot be used. You should be directly, attacking why religious experience is proof for God or not in comparison to perhaps an ontological argument or something like that. So it's a really ridiculous claim. Not only that, I've said in several of my videos, God is a logical possibility. It is logically possible for God to exist, and therefore it's logically possible for God to cause religious experiences to occur. So you can use them as proof. The second claim they make is that it is so easy for us to be mistaken or misinterpret a situation. So you might think that, oh, that's someone you know, and you might go up to them to find that it's not. The same way you might be at a bar and you might think, oh, this person's really coming on to me, and you go on to talk to them to find that actually they were laughing at you because you had food on your mouth or something. So it's so easy to misread signs, and this kind of is evidence that religious experience is just misinterpreting the situation, that God exists and he's causing it. This whole misinterpretation, that's why it's not good proof. And that's also like proof, and we know this, and they also play on the fact that theists agree that a lot of people do get it wrong. However, this claim is also invalid because they're attacking directly on sensory experience. So they're saying that one of the reasons why we shouldn't use religious experience for God's existence, because getting mistaken and misinterpreting, that's a big problem. Well, hello, science comes from from sensory experience. How do I know that when I drop the pen will fall to the ground because of gravity? Because since the universe existed, every time a pen has been dropped, it's fallen to the floor. It's all come from sensory experience. So even though some people might have got it wrong in science, so like Newton got it wrong, Einstein had to come and correct him, it's still nevertheless accepted and respected. So should religious experience. And religious theists agree that some people do get it wrong. That's why you have people like Saint Teresa of Avila and William James formulating criteria to distinguish between real and fake religious experience. Critics don't stop there. They go on to say that the content of religious experience is vague and ambiguous. Actually, it communicates nothing. And not only that, do they say that, they say that the descriptions that are given, they basically clash and conflict each other, because a Hindu description will never include Mary, and a Christian will never include, let's say, Brahmin, and these two counteract each other to show that actually religious experience is just an illusion that we seem to be creating. It's not proof for God's existence. Well, let's attack the first thing. They say that religious experience is too vague. It's not too vague. People change their lives on the basis of religious experience. St. Paul did. We have conversion experiences. We see so many positive outcomes. It can't be too vague, because if it's too vague, yes, it's ineffable, but so is the Lord. If something comes from this, if something is too vague and too ambiguous to be useful, then you would not see results, but you do with religious experience. The second thing is that the very different descriptions of God and the Hindu and the Jews and the Christians, all of them clashing. Well, no, it doesn't work like that. Imagine you're in high school again and you see a playground. In the playground, you see a fight. Each person viewing that fight will give you a different account. The reason they will give you a different account is because some might be short-sighted, some might be long-sighted, some might have a bias towards one party, but essentially they've all seen the same thing. So what I'm trying to say, in religious, you're seeing the same divine, but you're seeing a different perspective of it. And some people will understand it or be able to talk about it or explain it better because they might have a good spiritual insight, and others might be spiritually short-sighted. That's the reason why. These are all possible explanations. But they don't stop there. Critics go on and they say that there is a problem of recognition. Then basically what they're trying to say is that in order to have something, you need to be able to recognize it. So in order for me to go and get a tiger as a pet at home, I have to be able to recognize a tiger. If I think a tiger is a dog, then I might think, I might say, oh, tigers, they sit on your lap and they lick your hand. But this is all incorrect. So how are they like affecting religious experience? Well, what they're saying is that you have to be able to recognize God before you experience Him, because you could be experiencing the devil or all sorts of other things out there, supernatural things out there. You don't know what you're experiencing. And religious people will argue that you can recognize God. He's omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent. But then critics still argue, how do you recognize these features? Well, firstly, I would like to point out that we can recognize God because we know what God is. If you know what a tiger is, then you recognize what a tiger is, because to know something, you will know the features of it. It's a bit stupid what they're saying. You know, you will never think that a tiger will sit on your lap and lick your hands, because by definition, you understand that a tiger is a large cat with sharp teeth. The same way we understand what God is, so we recognize Him. So when we have experience of Him, we are able to talk about it. And you can recognize attributes like omniscience, omnibenevolence, because if you, like, people come out of the experience going, oh, I feel like I've been loved by God. That shows these features. And God has other features like being personal and stuff, immanent. That's all being demonstrated by the religious experience. And religious experience and religion is based on faith. It's not based on some sort of empirical proof. It's based on that you have faith that divine exists. People who have religious experience, they have faith that there is a God, so they experience it. But then they also say that, how can you say that religious experience is proof for God when you can't test or prove God? Well, the problem, what I would like to point out here, is that firstly, you can test and measure religious experience. You have Teresa of Avila and William James putting together these criteria. You can categorize it, Richard Swinburne and his 5 recognizable types of religions. You can do that. But you can't test everything in the universe. How you know that you love your partner? How do you test your love for your partner? It's impossible. It does not make sense to test your love for your partner. Okay, you might say, would you die for her, and things like that, but that's not actually a test. A test has to have empirical results, which that test doesn't. So not everything in life has a test. And you know, how do you prove things like torturing children is wrong? Because that's a subjective statement. The same way I believe God exists and God loves me, how are you going to test that? You can't. The same way you can't test that torturing children is wrong. The last criticism is that there are psychological and physiological explanations for religious experience. Feuerbach, I don't know how to say his name, I forgot now. Well, he basically says that God is just man written in large letters. We have created him with that imagination. He is our ideal person. We want to be secure. That's why we've created him and we believe in him. Similar to Freud, we have a subconscious wish from our childhood vulnerability. That's why we've created God. We follow God. The important point to note here, such a quick way I'm going to attack these psychological explanations, they have no proof. There is no proof that we have a desire to be secure. It's a theory. It's a theory which cannot be proved. So if you're saying God cannot be proved and it's a logical impossibility, blah blah blah, so is Freud. And this is why I think religious experience is proof for God's existence. Thank you for watching. Please visit my blog.